Not everyone has the time and motivation to go spend an hour block of time working out. And this is where I think the people can sigh a sigh of relief, because there's now so much emerging data that have been coming out, over the last decade on these short bursts of physical activity that add up. They add up, and people aren't really thinking about them, counting towards adding up to their physical activity, requirements for the week. And so there's a lot of studies now. There's on something called vigorous, intermittent lifestyle physical activity, VILPA studies. Have you heard of those?
Are these the exercise snacks?
They're unstructured. Mm-hmm. They're unstructured, and not everyone likes the word exercise snacks. I mean, I kind of like it, but the unstructured exercise, they're the moments in your life where you're taking advantage of everyday situations to get your heart rate up, to move. And so that could be, I'm playing with my new puppy and I'm sprinting around with my new puppy. Mm-hmm. I'm, chasing my grandkid around. I'm playing tag, or my child. I'm sprinting up the stairs to get to my office. I'm running to catch the bus. I'm moving, right? And so researchers, and there have been several studies on this now, researchers use accelerometers rather than just relying on these questionnaires, which are, as you know, extremely unreliable. I mean, it's very hard for people to remember how much exercise. You sitting here asking me about my exercise. I mean, there's always so much, that you can be accurate when you're trying to recall that. So these accelerometers are worn on people's wrists, and they're measuring like fast movement, the movement, right? And so thousands and thousands, like hundreds of thousands of participants. There's lots of data now showing that people that are doing these like short bursts at least a minute long, but up to 3 minutes, right? Where they're moving. I'm saying they're getting their heart rate. They're actually not measuring the heart rate in these days. They're moving faster with intent, right? They're jogging, or they're not. Of course, there's the cases where they're actually exercising, but the short bursts of it, they're doing the things that I just mentioned, and it's having outsized effects on health outcomes. So, for example, individuals that do on the high end, so they're doing 3 minutes of this short burst of an unstructured type of exercise snack, and they do it 3 times a day. So it's a total of 9 minutes a day. Okay, this type of activity, and it's considered more vigorous because of the intent to move, right? That's more vigorous, even though they're not measuring heart rate. That's associated with a 40% reduction in all-cause mortality, 40% reduction in cancer-related mortality, a 50% reduction in cardiovascular-related mortality.
Wow.
9 minutes a day. And this is even in people that don't identify as exercisers. So they're not the kind of people like you and I that go and intentionally set out time to go to the gym. They're people that they're doing those things, right? They're playing with their grandkids or their kids or their puppies or whatever. And so these moments, they add up. And I'm citing one study, but it was a dose-dependent effect, even doing 3 minutes a day. There's a study in women showing 3.5 minutes a day. I mean, they were having pretty profound benefits on all-cause mortality and cancer-related mortality as well. And multiple studies now have shown this. I mean, this is like one study after another after another. I mean, it is undeniable that these short moments of, getting physically active do add up. And structured exercise snacks can be part of that. Like maybe you don't have a puppy, maybe you don't have a kid yet, maybe you work from home and you're not taking this, maybe your situation is different than what I described, but you can take these moments to do exercise snacks. And that can be a minute long, and it can be like there's studies showing that two studies, and I'll talk about one, showing that getting up and doing 10 body weight squats every 45 minutes over a 7.5-hour work day is better at regulating blood glucose levels than a 30-minute walk, right? So you get up and you do 10 body weight squats. Pretty easy. I mean, it's also very good to break up that sedentary time. Mm-hmm. So being sedentary means like you're not moving. That also is an independent risk factor, even if you do exercise, for things like cancer being a big one. Although I would say if you're doing a lot of exercise, you're doing pretty good. But I just like to mention that as well. I would say being sedentary is a disease, actually. That's something, I mean, people aren't thinking about it, but
even in the absence of what Lane Norton calls energy toxicity, like even if somebody is at maintenance or below maintenance calories, if they're sedentary, that's problematic.
We do have data, for one, measuring cardiorespiratory fitness, which is a marker of cardiovascular health, being physically fit, right? Obviously, the gold standard of that would be measuring VO2 max, your maximal oxygen uptake during maximal exercise. A lot of studies do not actually directly measure VO2 max. They'll do, maybe a submaximal treadmill test, or they'll estimate it, right? There's a calculation out there you can do, kind of if you wear like an Apple Watch or some sort of fitness tracker, what they do is, it's looking at the distance that you run and the amount of time it takes, right? So like a 12-minute run would be an example. People do that. You run as fast as you can and maintain that pace for 12 minutes. So you're not going all out, obviously.
You see how far you can go.
Yeah. And there's a calculation out there that's done to kind of estimate your VO2 max. And so some studies a lot of studies are actually doing sort of an estimation of cardiorespiratory fitness. So cardiorespiratory fitness is really important, I think, for marking your health and longevity. And, if you have a low cardiorespiratory fitness, most of the times you are not physically active, right? And there are studies showing that if you don't have any diagnosable diseases, so you're not insulin resistant, you don't have cardiovascular disease, you don't have cancer, all that stuff, right? You're not obese, but you have a low cardiorespiratory fitness, it is as bad or worse in terms of your all-cause mortality, your predicting mortality, than having cardiovascular disease or smoking or having hypertension or these things that we know that are really bad for health, right? So being sedentary, as I'm saying, it's a low cardiorespiratory fitness. I guess it's not exactly correct. It's a little bit, I'm stretching it a little bit. But cardiorespiratory fitness is a marker of, I would say, fitness. And so that's why I think being sedentary is a disease. And people with a low cardiorespiratory fitness, I mean, if you go anywhere above that, from low to like low normal, that's associated with a 2-year increase in life expectancy. If you go from low to high normal, that's like almost a 3-year increase in life expectancy. And if you go up to high, then you're talking about a 5-year increase in life expectancy compared to where you were at with low. But again, I'm not talking about VO2 max, I'm talking about cardiorespiratory fitness. And it's really important. Here's another reason why I think that it's really bad. So these studies were done, by the way, cardiorespiratory fitness is improved by aerobic exercise in general. That's great. And then, if you add in high intensity interval training in their mix, that also really helps, because there are some people that don't respond necessarily to just doing
slow,
cardiovascular.
Steady state.
Yeah, about 40% of people don't respond. So mixing in the high intensity is good. If you're physically active and doing that, that's great. If you're doing these short bursts of physical activity, also good, because it's a little bit of a high intensity, exercise, right? A minute running around chasing your grandkid or your puppy or your child. That's a hit
Taking the
section.
stairs is amazing. I was traveling
Sprinting
with my team.
up the stairs.
Sprinting up the stairs, or if you're carrying a lot of luggage in the airport, like going up the stairs or down the stairs.
Right.
It's wild when you go to the airport. I like to notice this. Nobody takes the stairs.
Yeah.
Down or up,
Yeah,
like the escalators are there.
the luggage.
And I'm always like, oh, there's a great opportunity to get some extra steps and some extra work. But I realize that's me. But it's striking. And if you're in DC ever, they have these long stairwells that go up from the public transport, and that's a workout,
Carrying your luggage.
And I'm always like, oh, free workout.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Get it in my day. I mean, it sucks to arrive a little bit more sweaty than you would otherwise, but I just think if this were an experiment and we were looking at mice and we were videotaping from above, I always think to myself, like, which mouse am I going to be? All the mice are going up the automatic elevator. It makes sense. And then why they would want to do that. But these opportunities for exercise are clearly there.